This podcast is brought to you by Impact.com. Impact.com is the world's leading partnership management platform. Are you looking for new ways to acquire new customers? Impact.com can help you drive revenue through partnerships with publishers, creators, or other brands. Visit Impact.com today.
You got to start planning. Like, you miss half a day of meetings internally trying to figure out how to pivot. The amount of money that you're missing out on is insane.
You're listening to the Affiliate Marketing Podcast brought to you by AffyVerseMedia.com, the chapter and verse of everything you need to know about running a successful affiliate program for your business. Now, here's your award-winning affiliate and performance marketing host, an industry veteran, your affiliate marketing guide, and the founder of Affyverse, Leanne Johnston.
Are you ready to swap your lemonade for a pumpkin spiced latte? While the rest of the world is busy soaking up the sun, smart affiliate marketers are already hanging their digital stockings and planning ahead for the holiday season. In this episode of the Affiliate Marketing Podcast, I'm sitting down with the lovely Melissa Feemster, co-founder of Team Bespoke and former Linkshare general manager, to unwrap the secrets of holiday sales success. You'll also get a sneak peek at cutting-edge innovations that could revolutionize your approach to peak season. So if you're ready to make this holiday season the most successful yet, stay tuned. Your guide to retail success starts right here, right now. Welcome to this week's Affiliate Marketing Podcast with me, your host, Leanne Johnston. And I'm super excited because I finally tracked down Melissa Feemster. Melissa, it's a pleasure to have you here. Tell us a little bit about your background, and then we're going to get into the topic that we're discussing today, which is planning for holiday and peak periods and anticipating affiliate program scale.
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me. I'm just thrilled to be here with you. This is really what's so fun about this industry. You're always meeting new people, and you and I got to meet in person at PI Live. And then we get to do this podcast together, which is pretty amazing.
Tell us a little bit about Team Bespoke, how you got into affiliate marketing. We always like to start the podcast off with that because I hear the most amazing and wonderful stories about how people get into affiliate and performance. And I'm sure your story is just as amazing, but also being the ex-general manager of Linkshare, which is probably like a huge affiliate network in the US as well. So you've seen the industry from many sides, but tell us your story. How did you get in?
Absolutely. I did start my career at what was then Linkshare and was then purchased by Rakuten while I worked there. And it's really where I built my career. I'm just so fortunate. Someone picked my resume out. Of course, back in 2004, no one had a lot of affiliate marketing experience or even really online experience, right? And so I just got very lucky that someone chose me to work there at Linkshare. Leanne Dietrich picked it out. And I had a wonderful career and ended, as you said, as the general manager of the business and ran the US and UK for Linkshare. It was a really peak time for that network back then. We ran all of the department stores. We had all of this amazing data. It was really a fun role. I left Linkshare to join a startup, and that was kind of my foray into the startup world that truly changed my life. I'm, now a mentor to a bunch of startups, an angel investor, and just really took a turn there from going from being part of a really large company, which was amazing. I mean, Rakuten is an amazing organization. I had the opportunity to travel all over the world and meet companies from all over the world that Rakuten had acquired, which was pretty amazing. But then after I joined that startup, we were acquired by Google. And after that, I had the opportunity to start Team Bespoke, which is amazing. So we've been running for 5 years now as an agency.
Okay, so you deal with advertisers in the e-commerce space and you really help them to build and craft their performance marketing programs and help them to scale. And that's kind of why I wanted to talk to you, because you've got all of this great experience in retail and you understand the kind of seasonality and all the things that brands need to be prepping for. That's what we wanted to talk about in this week's podcast. So I'm super excited to have you here. So let's start off a little bit by telling people about because we do use different terminology, and a lot of people listening to this podcast are maybe new into the industry. We call it holiday and peak, which is like the key periods in the retail calendar. Can you maybe just run us through what those periods are and, what we're looking forward to in 2024 and what the big periods are going to be?
Absolutely. So holiday, especially in the United States, traditionally always started with Black Friday and then moved through the Christmas holiday. But now it's become longer. We really look at the holiday shopping season starting in October. Amazon Prime has moved their Prime Day into October in some years. That's really kicked off a lot of holiday shopping. There's a Singles Day that has been internationally very big. In the United States, hit and miss, mostly in the beauty industry. And then, of course, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and then moving into the key holiday shopping days throughout December. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about peak, the 5 days of Black Friday through Cyber Monday to potentially even Giving Tuesday, Thanksgiving, depending on how you look at it, tend to be the days when many clients make most of their money for the entire year.
That's mad. I mean, that was gonna be my next question, is like that tiny space of time is where most brands invest like all of their resources, all of their budgets. Like, what are the growth periods that you've seen? And are they getting bigger as years go on and these periods become more popular? Like, how much uplift is there on average, like that you've seen working with just general retailers, not specific niches, but what kind of numbers are we looking at that we want to be targeting? And I guess the rest of this podcast is going to be about how you take advantage of those periods.
Exactly. Many retailers are making somewhere between 40 and 60 of their entire online sales for the year in the holiday period. So call that maybe between November 1st and December 31st to make it fairly broad. But yeah, that's why it's so important. And that's why this is the time, and why we're talking about this today is because you got to start planning. I can't believe it's June, but we start planning now for that period so that we're 100% ready to go every single day. Because if you miss half a day of meetings internally trying to figure out how to pivot based on what happened, the amount of money that you're missing out on is insane. So you just have to plan so that you know what's going to be our plan B, C, and D in case something goes wrong. So you don't have to have meetings all day in order to know exactly what you need to pivot.
So let's try in the rest of this podcast to help people get their plans in place so that when October hits, they're ready to rumble and all of their partners are ready to rumble with them. So let's start off with thinking about key economic factors, because obviously it's a peak period. We need to be getting in front of consumers in advance to kind of leverage the offers and the sales that are going to be coming. You obviously need to be thinking about your sales processes. But what do we sort of need to consider on the economic scale? Because year on year it changes when you're planning for peak, depending on whether we're in a recessionary year or not. Talk to us about like things that we need to be aware of for this year at the moment.
Of course. Well, there are economic factors. The consumer is still really seeking value right now. So that value can come in the form of a coupon. It can come in the form of loyalty points. It can come in a lot of ways, right? The product value itself. Just know in the background, that's the theme, I would say, of the year, as the consumer wants some sort of value. In addition to that, we've got a lot of sort of external calendar things happening. So the Olympics are happening this summer. The election is happening in the United States in November. And so those things definitely tend to change how the consumer feels. And when consumers feel uncertain, they don't buy. And so us as folks who are wanting consumers to buy as much as possible are hoping for as much security for the consumer as we can make. So just anticipating those times when they might not be as ready to buy and being ready to give them what they need in the times when they're going to feel potentially more secure is important.
Now, that's a really good point, actually, because this brings me to say that there's no plug and play. Like, you can't do the same thing that you did last year this year, because it ain't going to work, because the whole economic cycle is completely different and different activities are happening. But maybe what advice can you give to brands, especially in the US with the upcoming elections, where that is an uncertain, political impact on economic climates? What are some of the things that you can plan for to kind of build that consumer trust and maintain their uncertainty so that they do buy? Are there things that we should be planning for 3 months before we get to the October, November time? And what are some of the best ways to do that?
There are. So start planning for getting into gift guides in August or September. I know that seems super early, but each of the content sites, the media houses, start writing those gift guides in August and September. So making sure that you have presence within those is really important. They're going to start to come out with those in October, which is a great time for people to really go through consideration and learning about the brand. And then the actual purchases will come through, of course, in the actual holiday peak time. So that's one thing to think about.
Let's just dumb that down a little bit. And not because my audience isn't experienced, but just think about the context of what you're saying. It's getting into the SEO, the content, the heavy content publishers. So maybe diversifying your brand out of some of the other channels, like the influencer channels, which are more on the bottom of funnel. Like, I already know what I want to buy, and I want to buy it from this person because they've got whatever offer they're offering, or bundle, or whatever it is. So start with the top of funnel earlier in October and kind of build that consumer trust and brand loyalty with repetitive content about quality, quantity, all of those things that are going to make consumers feel safe and secure in buying your brand and spending their money a little bit more consider it in the current climate. What's next?
The next thing is to know that Meta is going to get very expensive around that election. So October and end of September are going to get super expensive for any retailer who tends to spend quite a bit on any of the Facebook properties. So know that you might not be able to afford it. And so you're going to have to think about how to shift your budget differently. But that also actually affects the funnel that you were just talking about. And the fact that lots of times your brand is discovered within that Meta channel. So thinking about what are other places I can go to get top of funnel discovery in late September and October, where I'm going to shift my budget away because I just know that Meta is going to be so expensive. I won't be able to actually be playing much on there until after the election.
Well, the other thing is also, in my mind, when you say that, is go and find affiliates that are purchasing media on Meta and reselling it over. Like, start to look at affiliates that have paid Facebook accounts, start leveraging them a little bit more in your budgets and spending a little bit more focus on those types of partners. And I would say actually maybe even, and this has become a bit of a strategy session, not by design, but I'm glad that it has because it's good content. I would say also start working with like really core influencers that have highly engaged communities and think about TikTok, think about Instagram, and start to leverage those guys to seed your product in and talk about the value add of your product and why it's such a great product, because then when it does come to the sale period to buy, that's top of funnel, it's top of mind because it's been seen multiple times ahead of when the purchase period is.
Exactly. That's what we're advising our clients to do a lot of right now, is to plan to run influencer campaigns in September and October. So you really start to see that discovery of your product and then they're ready to buy for the holiday season. But really you have to start thinking about it now because of the timing of that, right? And so throughout July and August, you'll send your product, they'll have time to create the content. And then in September and October, that can go live. And then for holiday, you'll actually be able to see the momentum of those campaigns.
So we're talking about like top of funnel and then consideration and awareness and then like the purchasing process. So what about actually another random question, totally off topic here, but what about email marketers? Is it a good time to invest in publishers that have got data, like lead generators that can actually start to push product SPs and, value adds and testimonial type content through email to clients that they already know have either purchased those types of products before or the right like age demographic? So is that another channel that brands should double down in the before period?
I totally think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Because that's where you own, there's a lot of first party data within email and you can really tweak and segment your audiences and hopefully know a lot. But again, we were talking about sort of the seasonality of year to year. Don't look at last year because it was such a different year from a holiday shopping perspective. You had the most time possible between Black Friday and Christmas. And so the time leading up to it, people knew they had time, right? So this October is going to be different because of this election and also because I do think consumers are going to feel unsettled. So I think email is a great place to invest and really sort of do all the testing between now and October to know what's really going to work for that go time.
And maybe also investing in like ad networks as well to test different audience demographics and see what's actually going to convert best and what targeting, what do they call it, contextually. Test all of that stuff a little bit before the sale period, because what you don't want to be doing is spending during the sale period in all the wrong places, because then your conversion is going to be hit. So a lot of prep work to happen between now and October when the peak period starts and then leads into holiday. But what about during the actual period? Like, what are your tips for like really nailing it during that short period of time to get that 60% uplift?
Don't plan on having many sales the week of election week would be my advice. In 2020, we saw almost no buying from the consumer between Tuesday, which is election day in the United States, to Saturday. It really slowed down because there was an uncertainty in the outcome. Some states had not called. And again, consumers don't shop when that happens. I imagine there will be some uncertainty this year as well, is I guess how I'll put it. So I do feel don't plan on getting a lot of sales that first week of October. It's interesting this year. The following week is Singles Day on the Monday. And so last year we saw Singles Day across our clients in fashion and beauty be a little softer. And so I'm not sure about this year how Singles Day is going to do, but I would say be ready with something. Last year, the key thing that changed is people didn't message Singles Day as much as they messaged early Black Friday sales. Okay. So think about either one of those messages, but maybe consider messaging early Black Friday starting then. And then we have seen a lot of success the Friday before Thanksgiving, going out with some sales, whether that's sale on sale of some product you want to move through, but we are seeing people do a lot of self-shopping during that time frame. So if you would like to start to get some money out of consumer wallets early, think about starting to run a sale the Friday before Thanksgiving that's separate from your Cyber Week sort of plans that you have.
And definitely have that messaging swap over. So don't be lazy and create one campaign for both things. Like get really structured about this is a pre-sale and this is the actual sale period. And is it necessary to have two very different offers in that, or just like the messaging and the look and feel to be changed?
You know what? It really depends on the brand. I've seen it work both ways. So I've seen sort of the similarity carry through. And then I've also seen it where they really differentiate and either focus on one product. They want to go super deep, 70% off this product, this sort of week before. And then it's more of a site-wide for the actual cyber, something like that.
Yeah. Okay. That's good advice. All right. So what other advice do you want to give to brands during the peak holiday period? Because one of the things that we had spoken about was don't have all your eggs in one basket, which is like great advice and we give it out, but what does it actually mean?
Yeah, definitely have a diverse plan and have plans B, C, D ready to go. And so really think through what is the scenario if Black Friday happens and I haven't met my sales goal, how do I want to change Saturday, Sunday, and Monday based on that very quickly? And know that I would say lay out, if it's 10% short, here's what we're going to do. If it's 20% short, here's what we're going to do. And really have those offers, whether it's adding on free shipping, whether it's adding on a GP, whatever it needs to be, but be ready to make those offers richer and always be watching your competition. So not having your eggs in one basket, I think, is also about really watching what's happening in the space and making sure that if your competition is really leaning into something, being able to adjust and go after either, it's obviously a strategic decision, but go after that or don't, but make that choice and really watch it and know what's happening when that's going on.
So can I put you on the spot here and ask you to give us an example of when something like that happened to one of the clients or one of the brands that you worked on? What did you do to turn it around? Just to give people ideas to go from, because you can tell anybody, hey, add on free shipping or do something, but give us a real world example where you were like, this isn't actually working. How did you strap plan to get that plan changed? Can you give us an example of a failure to launch that turned around very quickly?
Of course, absolutely. Every year, I think each client I think this year we're going to try and capture some more margin. We're not going to go as deep. We're going to have a really profitable holiday season. And then it, starts feeling, maybe we're going to have to go a little deeper. So one of the key things is making sure you discount on the product people really want. And I think sometimes clients start by saying, we're going to do some of these other products as our feature for the sale and holiday. And even though it's not our hero product, we're going to see if this flies. And so one example is we had a beauty client and they went out with not, a site-wide and went out with sort of a segment on discount. And quickly they saw how much of the competition was going really deep and site-wide with their hero products. And they adjusted and we went forward for Cyber Monday with full site-wide offer. And it really made up the rest of the gap that was there. But they pivoted. They used they made an educated decision. They really, it's no harm, no foul to try and go into the holiday and capture as much margin as you can, right? But as long as you can pivot and make sure if that doesn't work, that you can make it up and make up that gap.
And I think that's good advice as well, because sometimes we buy into our own marketing playbook and we're very passionate about our products that we promote. And half the battle is convincing the client to actually think less loyally to their own brand and more strategically to what the customers want. So maybe sense check your promotions and your campaigns and your thought processes with, clients that you trust, or if there's a segmentation, or do a little survey. And maybe that's part of the bit that you put into the July to October, planning segment, to actually understand what are the key products that clients want. Look at your data and see, what are the highest sales streams across the product, database, and or look to see maybe also doing offers on overage and, old stock or last minute, sales or last offs, if that's, last season, whatever kind of retailer you are. I want to kind of shift the conversation to coupons, because I know in e-commerce and retail, coupons is a big, a whole other discussion. We're giving discounts on sales. So the whole premise of peak and holiday and everything is about getting discounts and getting people to actually part with the money that's in their wallet. How do you manage the coupons impact during this period? Because you are already giving huge discounts. That's the whole point, to get the customer direct to your website. But how do you leverage those coupon publishers who've got really rich databases and can actually, help, but they also want their own unique offer? How do you leverage not overly discounting and kind of you land up with no profit. You make loads of sales, but you have no profit. So what's the strategy that advertisers should be thinking about with coupons and loyalty partners during a peak season where there's a massive discount? Like, how do you manage all of that together?
For our clients, they tend to be direct-to-consumer brands that are fashion and beauty focused. And so they're pretty limited in the amount of discounts they usually do. So I have to say, I might be a little bit of a skewed focus group of one here, but for us, I would say that is the discount that everyone gets. We don't have anything on top of it, and you sort of plan for that. So if you do have some custom codes out there, those end by October 31st or November 10th or whatever it might be. And then everyone really gets the site-wide offer. Communicating that early is really important because the amount of volume that these sites and people have to deal with is just insane. So making sure that you know and have your deal locked in and can communicate to them as early as possible is really important. For the loyalty sites, we've seen an interesting trend the past couple of years, actually, where in the United States, Rakuten.com, Capital One Shopping are two of the largest loyalty points sites. And it was interesting because in 2022, Rakuten really spiked on certain days, like Black Friday and Cyber Monday. Those were huge spikes within sort of the Cyber Week period. And they would go down more on Saturday, Sunday, maybe Tuesday, things like that. And what we saw last year was that everyone remained elevated a lot more throughout those days. And the same thing really happened with Capital One Shopping as well. So I anticipate this year that we'll see elevated rates throughout the whole peak period, really starting Thanksgiving Day all the way through Giving Tuesday. Last year, Giving Tuesday, which is the day after Cyber Monday in the United States, some people called it a Cyber Monday extension. Some people called it Giving Tuesday. But for the most part, we saw most brands extend into that day with both the consumer offer and the loyalty points that they were giving. So we'll see what happens this year. But that's my prediction, is that we'll be high the whole time on the loyalty side.
Okay. And what about like shifting things, maybe spending more money on the SEO side during the peak period to actually capture that SEO? Because people do still search for certain products, and like lowering down the budget and investment, or only segmenting the bits of the loyalty and coupon partners that really make sense to you in that mix, in that segmented mix. Is that a good strategy, or should you just be everywhere all at once as much as possible? Like what works best? Because some people listening to this, they maybe don't have huge budgets. So where do they actually diversify during the actual sale period? They know where to spend now before to kind of build the brand reach and engage the consumer and make the consumer feel trusted. But during the sale period, do they maybe limit some of the money that they spend with the big coupon and loyalty sites and diversify into other channels because they already have that great bonus that's competitive to the rest of their brands? Or should they just maintain the status quo? What's the best metric to think about in that instance?
My opinion would be to go big with the converters in the time that things convert. So that would mean going big with coupon and loyalty at that time, and go big with the more top of funnel people in September, October to start to build the interest, and throughout the beginning of November as well. The other thing to think about is that since about February through May, at least in the United States, Google's SEO algorithms have greatly changed. And so a lot of the articles that used to come up when you search for best stocking stuffers, what's the best beauty, serum for me, those types of things, they've all changed drastically. So when you're asking about SEO, I was like, I honestly don't know. I don't know what's going to change between now and holidays. So my advice would be find ways to guarantee your message gets to the consumer and don't rely on Google during that peak time. So what's that leave you? Coupon, loyalty, and then email, like we talked about, making sure that you're getting a message out to them. But I would say that this year it will be definitely an unknown whether we can depend on Google's SEO to come back and make those gift guides actually appear. Because at Mother's Day, a lot of the gift guides, you couldn't find them. So it was a very different holiday for Mother's Day because of the SEO changes.
Okay. So we need to kind of make sure that we've got eyes on Google and what's happening and any algorithm changes, and also keep track of all of the content-based publishers that are in our affiliate programs to see who's actually kind of still maintaining their volume and their clicks, and then invest in those guys because they obviously haven't been negatively impacted yet with the algorithm update. Okay, so we've kind of given everybody a basic outline, a strapline out framework of what they need to do to prep and plan for peak. What about things that they need to avoid, or like that they can learn from all of your experience? Because you've done this hundreds of iterations with hundreds of clients over many years. If you had to give people your 5-step framework for coming out of peak and holiday alive and in one piece, what would those 5 things be?
Well, as we've been saying, I feel like a program record, but plan. Make sure that you've got all those scenarios ready. That is really the key thing. And as early as you can get that information out to your partners, the better. And I know folks really waver. Are we going to do 20? Are we going to do 25% off? As early as you can put that stake in the sand and make that decision, the better. And let's face it, this year, like you were saying, I've done this hundreds of times, but there's never the same because this year it's the shortest shopping season between Cyber Monday and last ship day. There are truly only 10 business days in that time frame. This is the shortest possible time. So really think through all the scenarios that could happen and be ready for anything, but be ready to spend big. This is not the year to maybe sit back and think, how can I capture margin? Because there's no time for it. Like you just really have to be ready to put the discounts out there this year. The consumer's uncertain, give them as much value as you can. So plan, give the consumer value, and be really ready to sort of pivot and address anything in those 10 days because those are going to make or break everything.
So there's going to be no room for the ones that stick half a toe in and, want to hang back for the safety net. This is a year to go all in. Those 10 days are literally the opportunity to deliver almost 60% extra revenue uplift. So that means being brave. That means putting your big girl panties on and putting your money where your mouth is and making sure that plan is rock solid and that it's been sense checked with your consumers, but also that you're starting now to have the conversations with the publishers that you want to double down with and go deep. I want to talk about some of the things that you've experienced working with big publishers and kind of just give people a sense of the timeframes and the impacts that publishers have when they are planning for peak, because it's not just a simple, hey, dude, can you change your link? And here's the new banners. Like sometimes there's coding that needs to happen. There's integrations, there's, lead gen forms and whatever the case may be. So what is a typical framework that you need to give to affiliates to make this reasonable for them to actually hop on board, get behind it and be ready to begin in those 10 days?
I would say in August and September, really know the products that you're going to want to feature. So that's for the gift guide angle and the influencer angle. So know what you're going to have shipped in stock for that time frame. If it's a clothing merchant, you'll know sort of the newness you're going to have and really sort of think through that. If you're going to have an advent calendar, that's been a pretty big thing, especially within the beauty space lately. Sort of knowing some of the key products within that you can feature and even being able to expose those as early as August, September to get editors interested and influencers interested in really promoting that and knowing what that is early would be my advice there. And then I would say the other thing to do is feed people the scenarios for last minute. So the consumer has become very last minute this past 6 to 9 months. We're kind of back to where we were pre-pandemic. Everyone's busy and no one has time. But we have a flower merchant, and for both Valentine's Day and Mother's Day, we saw the most orders at the last minute that we have seen of any of the prior years. So everyone's really back to last minute. So thinking through, how can you help the publisher with that last minute consumer, right? You're right. There is a lot of programming that has to happen, but what can you give them to help them prepare as much as possible? On the media house side of things, articles that have been written recently that are like last minute gifts have been doing almost the best of many others. So thinking through, what are the products I have that can fall into that last minute gifts category? And how can I feed that out to the publishers so that they have the content they need to fill in those articles? And then for loyalty and coupon, I would say be ready, especially after December 13th, the last ship day. If you can do any 2-day shipping, if you can do any higher cashback rates during that time, to give, again, that value to the consumer so that even if they're paying more for shipping, they're still feeling like they got a value and they're getting something. But there's going to still be a lot of shopping online between December 13th and December 22nd. So being ready to do a lot of that shipping last minute and what products you can actually deliver, knowing that is really important.
What about some of the innovation? What have you seen recently that was quite cool that worked, just so we can spark people's brains to think a little bit innovatively before they get into that planning phase?
There's been a couple publisher models that have come out recently that I think are really cool that are on the resale side of things. I don't know if you've seen some of these, but like Croissant and Fia are a couple that come to mind, but ones that are really capitalizing on helping the consumer see that value early, because they're like, if you buy this Veronica Beard blazer for $700 today, we'll guarantee in the next year that we can resell that for you for, call it $400. I'm just using example numbers. But it's, in some ways, it's like a buy now, pay later thought process for the consumer, but it's a way to get them in the mindset of, I'm going to pay this, but it's not fully costing that amount of money to me if I am into resale. And it's a kind of neat twist on things, I think.
Well, also thinking about collabs, like you could be selling a high-end luxury product like that, and then you could do a collab to set up the account. Like here in Europe, there's a company called Vinted, which sells high-end brand wear clothing. So once you're done with your, purchase and you want to kind of like cash out and use that money for something, and it's like handbags, shoes, whatever it is, there might be a really nice collab that a really high-end luxury brand could do for their clients to actually elongate the value of the purchase that they're making, which in an economically, sensitive year that we're in with all of these things that are happening, it might be a nice upsell. And then you could cross-sell each other as well and leverage those databases, brand-to-brand partnerships. So I'd like to see people listening to this podcast get really innovative and start reaching out to partners and doing brand swaps and product swaps or product bundles alongside the discounting, because it really gives that consumer an additional value add that might help them get over the line to part of the money that's in their wallet, So I love that idea, actually, and I think that's a really great one. So thanks so much for sharing that. I want to ask you one more question before we round up this podcast, because you've already given everybody a framework, basically, which I hope has been incredibly helpful for our listeners, is where do you see the future of retail performance marketing, like past peak, and we're thinking about 2025 next year? What are things that brands need to be doing to double down on performance, to really work more succinctly with their partners? And it can be anything from tracking to relationship management. What are your top tips for getting ahead and planning your strategy in 2025?
I really think it's finding the new ways that AI is going to affect the business. So I think that there's going to be quite a few new publisher models that come out that are truly personal shopping assistants that help you plan and use your preferences in order to help you choose. And I think making sure that you're not too close-minded to some of the new publisher models that come your way, and really as an advertiser thinking, how can I test these new things without, too much risk? But I really think getting on early with some of these is going to be pretty important. So one example is a company called ShopSense.ai that's come to us recently, and she's got finally doing the thing. There's been a million brands that have done this. That's in the graveyard of streaming TV, connected truly with buying what that person is wearing at that moment. And she's really got that down. And so we're testing and going live with that in the next couple of weeks. I'm really excited to see how that does. But I think looking forward to 2025, that personalization through AI is going to change a lot in our industry. And I know that, publishers like Capital One Shopping are working on, certain tools within their ecosystem for that. But I think there's also going to be businesses that come out and become huge entirely that are new that we don't even have as partners today.
Yeah. I love that. All right, guys. This is where we leave Melissa Feemster, who has given us so much value in this week's episode. It has been an absolute pleasure to have you on this podcast. I'm actually quite interested to bring you back after peak.
Let's see if I was right about anything.
And we'll see if your crystal ball was right. And so we'll come and give you like the download of after holiday and peak, maybe early next year. It's been a pleasure to have you on this podcast, Melissa. I've had so much fun. Thank you for being here with us and with our audience today.
Thank you. This has been wonderful.
Are you ready to elevate your business and take it to new heights? The Elevate Summit is coming to you from London, the United Kingdom, on the 16th and 17th of September in partnership with Affiverse, Lead Generation World, and Maverick.io. This year, we're focusing on how to grow your business once third-party cookies eventually fall away. We'll be teaching you how to plan ahead for 2025, creating your marketing strategy and understanding what channels offer the best investment to keep your sales growing, along with understanding how to leverage social selling and lead generation to grow your business. Whether you're an affiliate, an advertiser, retailer, network, agency, or just a B2B tool or SaaS provider, this event is made for you if you want to elevate your performance, understand where to get more first-party data, and grow your online service-based business leads next year. From in-depth panel discussions to TED Talk mini masterclasses, you'll get a host of insights on what to plan for and how to get successful next year. Enjoy our tabletop exhibition spaces and see new tools and tech and agencies that can support your business growth. Get to this event and come and learn more with the brightest minds in performance and lead generation. Visit affiversemedia.com/elevate-2024 to secure your ticket now. You really don't want to miss out on all that we'll be sharing with you at this year's summit. I'm looking forward to seeing you there.